New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs playing coy with reporters when asked if his province is heading for an election. The Premier is facing a political firestorm over changes to the province's LGBTQ2S+ policy in schools. Those changes now require students under 16 to get parental consent if they want to change their pronouns or their name. Students who can't get that consent need to talk to a social worker or a guidance counselor. Dorothy Sheppard, who used to be the province's social development minister, quit last week following the controversy, but it turns out her issues with the Premier go back longer than that. In an October 2021 handwritten letter she shared with Power Play, she accused the Premier of alienating everyone around him, sowing distrust across the government, and micromanaging to a point that he stops initiatives from getting done. Dorothy Sheppard was New Brunswick's Minister of Social Development. Hi, Ms. Sheppard. Good to have you on our program. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for asking.
A lot of time has passed since you originally wrote that letter back in 2021 to Premier Higgs. Why did you wait until now? What is it about what happened recently that prompted you to resign?
So when I had resigned from cabinet on Thursday, one of the questions was why is this so important for you to resign over? And I made the comment that, I didn't resign just over policy 713. I resigned because I felt that cabinet and caucus were routinely dismissed. And I just felt that I couldn't accomplish anything more in this Premier's cabinet. And so there was a little bit of an alluded comment that I'm walking away because I didn't get my way. And that's not the issue at all. The issue is that I have struggled for some time with a leadership style that really dismisses ministers and cabinet and colleagues.
Can I ask you, in the context of 713, if that was the case? So, for example, it appears, just looking from the outside in, like there is a lot of dissent within cabinet and within caucus over the policy that the Premier has ended up pursuing. Were there attempts to voice that and to counter what he was doing, and were they dismissed?
Well, I can tell you that I certainly am very frank in my conversation and my opinions. And I believe in caucus solidarity. I believe in cabinet solidarity. I don't feel that we had a path forward that we had chosen. And so my concern here is that there needs to be a consideration that a premier is first among equals, and that process is really important to delivering good policy to the people of New Brunswick. And I just feel that that process is not followed. I've said that. We said that when the 8 of us took our stand, that we didn't feel that we have a process of transparency. And so I stand by those comments.
Can I ask you what that means in layman's terms? Does it mean that a majority, for example, of caucus is opposed to what the Premier is doing and he just doesn't appear to care? Like, is that how you perceive it?
I believe that some of this direction is very arbitrary. And in the question of the last issue with policy 713, it appears and it feels to me, from my perspective, that this is more of a personal agenda than government policy. And so I really felt that we watered down a policy that was there to protect children. And so for me, it was the last straw that we would be dismissed. Those of us who had serious concerns about the path forward were not heard. And I just felt that was my last straw.
Do you feel the Premier's personal beliefs are directly impacting the policy he pursues, especially in this case?
Well, it doesn't appear to me that it's based on anything, any real evidence that I've seen. And I've certainly, as Minister of Social Development, responsible for hundreds, of children in the care of the province. I'm very conscious of some of these policies and how they affect children, and I disagree with the path forward.
Do you think that this policy will negatively impact kids in your province?
I believe so, and I believe that the whole discussion, because of the way it was managed, has done harm. And so that to me is just not appropriate. And so, as I said, for me, this goes beyond Policy 713, much more beyond Policy 713. And I believe that my letter of October 21 conveyed those same concerns to the Premier. And so now it's, now it's out there, and I've done my part, and I'm kind of, this is my last word on it.
Did the Premier ever reach out to you after that initial letter back in 2021 to discuss your concerns?
Yes, we had a meeting in January, and the meeting didn't go bad, but it wasn't productive. I knew leaving that meeting that nothing would change, and I just determined myself to put my head down, do the best job I can do, and accomplish as much as I could accomplish. And on Thursday of last week, I just felt that there was nothing more that I could accomplish in this Premier's cabinet, and so the work is too important. I stepped down.
I imagine that someone in the Premier's shoes, taking away the debate over the policy at hand for a second and just sort of focused on the leadership issue, I imagine someone in their shoes would say, yes, we're first among equals, but ultimately the buck has to stop with me. Ultimately, I carry the responsibility for whatever decisions are made, and the accountability rests with me as well. Is that possible? Is it that they have to make decisions that they feel are in line with their beliefs or their whatever it may be, because ultimately the buck does stop with them?
I think that based on expert injection of opinion, based on expert advice and the counsel of your cabinet colleagues, all of those things need to be weighed. And yes, at some point, someone has to make a decision. But the decision for me that's been made personally put my reputation at risk, and I couldn't stand by and allow that to happen.
And you plan to remain in caucus?
I would like to remain in caucus. I plan on remaining in caucus. I have not been told anything different. I have friends and colleagues there who I work closely with, and I would like to support them in the work they're doing.
Has the Premier spoken to you since your resignation on Thursday? No. No effort to reach out?
No, and there hasn't been any effort to reach out even during the last debate on this policy. I've never been asked to say, is there a way to fix this? No, that has never happened.
Do you think there should be an election?
I would think the people of New Brunswick, and personally, I don't want to see an election at this time. I believe that we've done a pretty good job on many things for the people of New Brunswick, and I think that we could still accomplish more.
But even though you don't think that you can remain in cabinet, the Premier doesn't have your faith to even remain on as a minister, you think he deserves a longer runway?
Well, it's not for me to decide. I've made my decision. I've certainly made it known how I feel. I'm not sure I wanted it to be as public as it is, but it is what it is. And so it will be, there's more people involved in this. There's party members who may speak up, or party presidents. There's colleagues. Everyone will have to make their own decision about how they're going to proceed.
Could you run for this Premier if there were an election?
I've made it known now that no, I don't believe I could. I don't think that our relationship is a relationship, and I don't believe that that I could run again under this Premier. I think that it would risk my reputation, and so I'm going to be the MLA for St. John Lancaster. I love St. John Lancaster and love doing the work for the people of this constituency. And so for now, in the days and weeks ahead, that's my goal.
Ms. Sheppard, I'll leave it there. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.